Okay, I think streaming. Welcome to all those in our studio audience and at home. We'll call to order our special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, and welcome to the board and those in the audience and those listening by streaming remotely. Thank you so much. I remind the trustees that it's especially important, even if we can hear you, it's especially important for you to turn on your microphones and, as you can see, speak right into them. We'll first ask Rebecca to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, then Dave, if you give us our safety first minute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a Safety and Security Officer for UTA, periodically I want to bring you a security message, and today it's an info security message. Tax time is here. There's a lot of electronic filing going on. There's a lot of opportunities for phishing expeditions with your email and with your online account, so just be careful. Never click on anything that you are not aware of the sender. We have two information security specialists here at UTA now that help us protect against the multitude of phishing expeditions that hit us. So just pay attention to all those emails and electronic activities that you are going to be undertaking in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Dave. We'll then ask Rebecca to swear in if Toby Molesky to come forward, our newest board member.
I, Toby Molesky,
do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state,
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office as trustee
then that I will discharge the duties of my office as trustee
for the Utah Transit Authority with fidelity.
for the Utah Transit Authority with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Welcome. Mayor Molesky is the recent mayor of Pleasant View and represents, as I understand it, Weber County and the municipalities of Brigham, Perry, and Willard, Box Elder County. So we do welcome you. We ask Bob now for our general comment period if there are any items that don't pertain to a specific agenda item.
I do not have any cards.
Thank you. Let's then go to presentation of the resolution. It has become apparent to me, and I think others, that we needed to consider this matter of business. I had a long, productive discussion with Speaker Hughes a couple of weeks ago, discussing the various elements of the task force bill, which I think will be brought forward shortly. I think it's not been numbered, Matt.
This afternoon.
It'll be numbered this afternoon, and I assume the co-sponsors will be the co-chairs, which will be Representative Mike Schultz and Senator Wayne Harper. Of course, the item that we discussed the most was how UTA should be governed. The task force bill has a provision in it, I think you all know, that provides that large transit organizations will, from now on, once the legislation passes, would have a board of 3 members, similar to the County Commission and Public Service Commission and other commissions. The Speaker feels very strongly that UTA needs the counterweight of a full-time, small board of trustees. in order to have the resources and the knowledge and influence and control to offset the staff and the organization generally, and to really be able to lead the organization. He doesn't believe a part-time board is able effectively to do that. So I suggested another model to him, but feedback is that he's very determined to move forward with the 3-member commission. The task force met again Thursday for its last meeting, and I was able to testify there and mentioned again that I think this bill, and we generally think the bill is very far-sighted, that this is a visionary process the task force has gone through. They're thinking about every transportation corridor in terms of its multimodal solutions, be that active transportation, bus, train, roads, and also disruptive technology like autonomous vehicles and road sensor guidance. And there's just lots of exciting things in this bill. There is the potential for transit to be included in state transportation investment fund funding. And so it really has, I think, some exciting elements about it. It provides that the counties either will raise their sales tax option to 1% for transit, or the state will do so. In my testimony, I commended the task force for those elements of the bill, but invited them to consider an alternative where we might have a very small and very active board, but not of full-time people. In a very long and candid conversation with Representative Schultz, he expressed to me and to Trustee Milburn and Trustee Walker that he felt very strongly about the 3-member board. In fact, that this was non-negotiable in the bill, that this will be part and parcel of the bill, or the bill from his standpoint will not move forward. So we had a decision to make about how to address that, because Representative Schultz expressed that he felt like UTA was speaking with several voices, and he didn't really know what the official position was. Well, I think we've, since December, have tried to convey the message that we don't want to get very political. How this decision is actually made is really a legislative decision. We're not a legislative body in that sense, and it's a big policy decision the legislature needs to make. And but we did express that we wish the legislature would consider another option that would allow for part-time citizen involvement. But that's been rejected by the sponsors and the speaker. And so we have today the resolution before us that I've drafted or have drafted. And the question is, shall we support this part of the proposed bill? If we do, I think that it shows at least House leadership that we're very serious about moving forward in this really exciting discussion about how transportation will be dealt with in Utah in the future. I think it takes us out of the politics of the bill. I understand that there are differing opinions. I understand that this has implications for representation throughout the counties and how you balance things. I understand that having full-time people raise concerns with others. So I'm not here to instruct or even urge you to vote one way or the other, because you have your own opinions, you're independent, good-thinking people, and you represent various interests and groups. But I think it behooves us to have the conversation. So I think I've said enough. And maybe if either Commissioner, if you'd like to, Brett, if you have anything you'd like to add, or Mayor, where'd the Mayor go, Mayor?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if it'd be appropriate to add on to your comments just now, or
Yeah, that's fine.
if it would be better to, if you'd entertain a motion, and then we could have discussion.
That's fine too. Let's do that. That's
So
official.
I will make a motion to approve the resolution. Yep, it's there in your packet. Right there in front, was also emailed out to you, but looks like it's resolution R 2018-1-05, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority regarding the transportation governance amendments currently being considered by the Utah State Legislature.
I have a motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion. And Commissioner, why don't you continue?
Thank you. Fellow trustees, what our chair outlined is accurate. I've been had the opportunity to join with Trustee Bell in both of those conversations, both with the speaker and with Representative Schultz. And as he pointed out, they were very open and direct conversations. And although each of us may have different thoughts and opinions on how to move this particular piece forward, I think it does behoove us to step back and look at the larger picture of what the task force was really trying to accomplish, and really where we're headed here in Utah, and the things that we're trying to accomplish with the growth that we're experiencing and the growth that we'll continue to experience. And we have an opportunity here to be transformational in how transportation as a whole is engaged in the state of Utah, particularly along the Wasatch Front, and with transit being an integral part of that solution to the challenges we face. And so, you know, I've come to the conclusion, and based upon the strong feelings at this point in time, that you know, from a standpoint of actually operating a system, moving the trains and the buses and moving the people, I think we do a fantastic job, and I think it would do our citizens and those that rely on the service and those that we employ that are providing that service, if we at this point in time dug our heels in and didn't do all we can to move the ball towards the goal line, and once again, that ball is to make transportation as a whole better along here in the Wasatch Front in the state of Utah. So, is it a perfect solution? I guess proof will be in the pudding, and of course the bill still has a lot of time left and a lot of other angles. There's a lot in the bill that other entities outside of UTA that have varying interests in. So, but I think it would be wise on the part of this board to step forward and show a commitment that we're in for the long haul and making the transportation here in Utah to be the best, to not get caught up in the political nuances of one component piece, and that's on the governance side. So, regarding the representation, I think that is covered by the advisory board that is also in the bill, a 9-member. it is different. It's different than what we've been accustomed to. But sometimes change isn't all bad and different is good. So it can be good. There might be some challenges along the way, but then they can be addressed as we go forward. But that's kind of my 2 cents at the moment.
I wanted to echo a little bit of what Trustee Milburn said, but I just want to say that I'm actually pleased and excited with the concept of the task force and the fact that they've been willing to tackle this problem from a holistic approach. I serve on the Point of the Mountain Commission as one of my other hats, and as you've all seen in recent weeks, we've seen what the projected growth is, and the future really is now. It's not a few years from now. We're looking at serious issues by 2020, which is 2 years. I'm excited about this bill because I think it really does take a holistic approach. At least it begins to take a real holistic approach to transit. I've come to love transit in my board. I was converted to it. I probably wouldn't have been, but I see its value, its need. I watch it. I see the potential of it. I frankly think if we're going to win the battle of clean air and the congestion, we are the answer. I don't think there is another answer. I think it is transit. I'm excited that there's an opportunity to maybe reform the way it's funded, the way that everything is put together, and I think this bill is unique. It's the legislature's task and job to do. I support the 3-member commission because that's what they want. And if that's not perfect, they'll have every opportunity to fix whatever they need to do to tweak. But I think it's exciting that it's an approach that's looking to use transit for the future for what it really is, which is the way we will clean our air and move people. So I appreciate the legislature being willing to tackle it that way. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the UTA board and learn about transit and be a part of what it is. And I guess in the sense, if this bill passes, we're out of our volunteer jobs, which I'm okay with, in the sense that if it moves the entity forward and puts us in a position to move people and serve our communities, that's all I care about. That's my goal. I think there's so many. I just think it's unique, and it's a continental or a tectonic shift in the plates, if you will, is the way we've done things in Utah with respect to transit. But that's not bad. I mean, that can be. We're moving and evolving and changing and trying to meet the needs of the future, because our growth situation, our future is now, and we have. I think we're maybe a little behind, quite frankly, in our ability to plan to deliver. And this certainly puts us in the position to deliver transit to where it's going to be needed.
Thank you. I note that someone's joined us on the phone. Who's on the phone?
Bob, are you on the phone?
I am on the phone. Thank you. Anyone else?
Is there anyone else on the line?
Okay. Trustee McKinley has joined us on the phone. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes,
Since
Babs.
you had meetings up on the Hill, how will these positions be funded? Through the legislature, we'll find some money for that. And is this fashioned on any working model that we know of with other transit organizations around the country? How did they come up with the 3-member thing? Just a little historical background would be helpful.
Well, I'll address the first one. The funding for these positions has been raised, but no real answers forthcoming. If I had to speculate, I think they're going to say UTA needs to find that money. And Jerry, I'll ask you, I think you probably have the broadest knowledge as to whether other agencies have been governed in this fashion.
There were no examples that came out of the task force of transit agencies that are governed by a 3-person full-time commission. The model that has been mentioned as an example by the speaker is the State Tax Commission or Public Service Commission.
I have a question about the State Tax Commission or the Public Service Commission. Is their scope similar to what UTA deals with?
You know, the Public Service Commission is quasi-judicial. You know, they're hearing rate cases, that sort of thing. The tax commission has 4 members, and they're quasi-judicial. They hold hearings as appeal officers and sit as a joint commission. They have an executive director under them who runs things. So yeah, it's not a perfect analogy by any means. Nisha.
So I've been giving this a lot of thought. As you know, I spend a lot of time on a hill with the Utah Association of Special Districts. I've talked to a lot of people. I agree with Greg and Troy and Brett. This is probably the solution that we're going to be faced with. And frankly, the money part is the best part. I'm not convinced everything else is right, but I do like the idea of additional funding. I've served on this board for nearly 19 years, and I've written because I don't want to say something I don't mean or I don't want to say. I've seen some incredible things happen. Some are outstanding, some not so much. I served during amazing times. I watched the university line be built early and under budget. The medical center extension, early, under budget. I saw the appetite for transit move UTA from a little company that could to a little company or to a bigger company that did. And it excited our citizens, our guests who come to our state, and our economic development to demand more transit. That's what this is all about. It's a demand for more transit. The need is there. The 2015 plan started as the 2020 plan, and it developed lines that went to West Valley, went to the airport, went to Daybreak, continued the North Line out into the far south ends of the valley. And then, if that weren't enough, Front Runner, heavy rail, a huge, huge project came in. Every one of them, faster than planned and under budget. I'm so proud of what this agency has done, from the bus driver who greets all of his passengers every day, most of them by name, to those who have sat in the chair Jerry sat in, or sits in, and the chairs Jerry and everybody else have sat in before. I'm so proud of them. I remember that they told us if we build it, they will come. Oh, I think that came out of a movie. But if you look at the Farmington Station development, just one development that came as a result of what UTA did, we should pat ourselves on the back and say spectacular. But no, look at the Sugar House development. We should pat ourselves on the back and say spectacular, the millions and millions of dollars that have been generated for our state as a direct result of what UTA has done. It's an example, this is a prime example of what a volunteer board, an excellent staff, and a wonderful executive team can do. Doesn't matter the numbers. I served on a board with 9 members. I've served on a board with 17 members and 19 members. And it doesn't matter the number. It's the desire, the will, the support. I remember John English saying right after the university line extension was built, he said, don't get too cocky, board, because as soon as you're successful, you're the target for everybody in the world. And he was right. We are the target. We've had some board members and staff members who kind of forgot his admonition, because with that, he said, we must be aware every day of who we represent, and we must represent those values every day. We had some board members who didn't. Either they didn't hear that admonition or they didn't, and some staff too, let's be honest, who didn't hear it and didn't follow it. But that doesn't mean that we all were wrong. But today, I feel indicted. I feel just as indicted if I was standing before a judge, because what we have done is not good enough for the legislature.
What we have done is not good enough for Lee Davidson. What we have done is not good enough for the Deseret News. Why? Why? We did our best. Isn't that good enough? We tried our best. Isn't that good enough? And our people work hard, and then they volunteer. When we have events that come here, our people volunteer to help. They're not just out there driving their buses or running their trains or are fixing stuff. What they're doing is volunteering to make our state represented properly and successfully. I recognize fully that we have some people in the legislature who sat on this board, people that I love with all my heart, who have strong feelings that we have failed somehow. And it doesn't mean that I believe that. I don't. And it's really going to be hard for me to vote yes for this resolution, because I feel like it's an end run to undermine everything we've done. And I'm going to give you one example. There was a legislative audit of UTA, and one of the things they complained about, and not only of UTA, but every other entity in the state, is transparency. That we closed our meetings for a bit and then we opened them back up because we realized we weren't being transparent, and our committee meetings. And it was with real angst that we were attacked, or that we accepted the attacks because they were valid. This bill gives that 3-member commission the right, and actually suggests that they meet in private without anything they do being questioned, because it's not an open meeting. Everything we do, we invite the public to comment on. They may in their public meeting, but they won't in their private meetings, because that's one of the things this bill authorizes. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. I love this agency. I love the people I work with. I love those board members who have come and gone, who have served diligently, valiantly, long before I came on the board. And I just feel like that we have to be proud of what we have done. And we ought not have everything that is said about us begin with the beleaguered UTA board. We are not beleaguered. We are proud. We have done a good job. We will continue to do a good job until the day they kick us out and make us turn out the lights.
Thank you, Nisha. Sherry?
Thank you. I've spent a good part of this week trying to wrestle with what's being asked here. I was excited for the task force. I'm excited for so much of what's in this bill. Considering transportation as a whole and qualifying projects on what's best and which mode is best is exciting. It's part of the solution. It's something, as I have served on our Provo Transportation Committee, it's something they have considered as they have worked. And it's really the future of transportation. And so, yes, I think this is a visionary bill in that respect. But there's not a transit agency. I've done a lot of research. There's not a transit agency in this country that serves with a board of less than 5 people. And I think there's a good reason. And Weber County's looking to change their form of government. Utah County's looking to change their form of government because of transparency issues, because of oversight and all of that. And I think when you take an agency as large as the UTA and you revert back to the very thing that we have been criticized for, which is not enough openness, not enough transparency,
I don't see anything in this bill that is going to guarantee that that goes forward. So we have to figure that piece out. If we're looking at governance, I know we sent representatives to this task force. There were 16 people who are intimately involved with the governance of this organization who have not been asked by the legislature what our experiences are. We have a document that was prepared and sent to the U.S. Attorney about the governance of this organization and how it has changed. When I came on this board in March of 2016, I came mad. I came up here, I was going to kick some tail and get you guys in line. And what I found out was you guys were already working on it. You were already putting the reforms in place. And so it's one thing to stand on the sidelines and point fingers at an organization and criticize them. And it's another thing to dive in, put the target on your back, and get to work. And I'm grateful to serve with you as board members because you've been willing to wear the target and get to work. And this is the product of that work. This is the reforms that we have put in place, and we should be proud of it. I have never worked in another organization. I've served in a lot of boards, including as an elected official, that has crossed their T's, dotted their I's, and worked so carefully to be transparent and to fulfill our fiduciary duty to not only the taxpayers, but our appointing authorities. One of the things that I need to talk about here is that I am accountable to Utah County, to the mayors, and by extension, the councils, and by extension, the cities and citizens of Utah County, to the commissioners of Utah County. The commission form of government was announced just a couple of weeks ago. I can't vote on this yes today until I have an opportunity to talk to those who I am responsible and accountable to, which is my appointing authority. My second request would be, could we meet in a work session with our legislative task force and talk specifically about the governance issues of this organization and what we've improved and what they still see are the faults and how we can move forward. If they need us to move faster, then let's help them to see that with fuller perspective. So I'm going to vote no, but I'd like to make a substitute motion today. And my substitute motion is that by resolution, I would request that this board request a work session meeting with the Transportation Task Force to go over specific governance issues and to help share the things that we've done in this document and to answer any remaining questions and concerns. And the reason I think that is important is because I think it's part of doing your due diligence. It's part of your due diligence as a legislator. It's also part of due diligence as a board member. And it's a way to connect to our appointing authorities are and our locals' voices are. There are locals that are very concerned about how this bill is going to affect them. So that would be my motion, is that we request by resolution that we be able to have that meeting and see what we can do to answer some of the questions and inherent problems in there. We have a problem to solve in this state, and that is that we are growing. We have air quality issues. We also have congestion issues. We do not want to stop this economy. We are in an incredible time. The Point of the Mountain proposal is critical for transit. We want to be part of that solution. We want to be wise stewards, and we want to be able to help participate in that. That has been our effort, and that has been our commitment as a board ever since I've been on this board.
Let me bring that forward. Do we have a second? We have a substitute motion. Are you able to second? Or is she able to make a motion?
She is able to make motions and second, but not vote on the actual
Okay, so
action.
we have a second. Discussion.
Microphone, please. I was just waiting to be in.
Hold that microphone right up.
I just have a couple of comments after talking with those that are a part of my appointing authority, which is Box Elder and Tooele County, some of the mayors and some of the commissioners. There is a concern that going to a 3-member commission would take that would move one more layer of bureaucracy from the people paying the taxes. And those 2 counties specifically, they feel like that they are putting in a large amount of money and not getting a lot of service because we're building up the funds to be able to bring that service there. But they're already having to answer a lot of questions to their constituents of why they're putting in equal amount of money per household as everybody else, but aren't getting the services. And so they felt like that this was one more layer that would be putting in kind of a taxation without representation. And so I do need to put that on the table as a concern from several of the people that I talked to from my appointing authorities.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion?
I have that same issue, even as recently as an hour ago, being told that's the feeling of those who appoint me.
Thank you, Mayor.
I guess where I'm a mayor and having just been with about 6 mayors, they asked me about this potential resolution, and the fact that just as Trustee Cronin and the rest that we've heard, there is that need of representation, and they feel that it's yet one more step removed. And at least the mayors that I spoke with, unsolicited, said that they were concerned of a 3-member commission, and they're from Utah County. And right now, if you're not aware, Utah County is in somewhat of a little bit of turmoil as far as the commission. And they feel that there's just way too much power within 3 individuals. And they recommend at least a 5-member commission, feeling that that would be a broader representation and there would be more dialogue and discussion that would need to take place in order to get a consensus or a favorable vote to move things forward.
And if I may just add one more comment. The comments is that if we wanted to go to a smaller board, to consider having 1 vote per county that is putting taxes in, so that it was equalized in some
Say that again.
1 vote per county that is putting taxes in. So Tooele's needs are far different than Utah County's needs. So if maybe going to a 5 or 7-member board would probably be more palatable.
Thank you.
Chair, I appreciate and acknowledge the comments that have been made regarding this potential, the substitute motion here. Maybe we can take a step back and really look at what the roles and duties of that will come forward in the proposed legislation with a 3-member. Well, let me back up first. We talk about mayors and expressing concern and whatnot. I find it interesting that both the Utah League of Cities and Towns and the Utah Association of Counties have not engaged very openly and publicly in opposition to the 3-member. There has been some questions and concerns raised, but neither of those organizations have taken a position in opposition, but they've had opportunity to review the bill and have been very intimately involved in the task force.
So,
But I'm still speaking, please. But if the 9-member advisory board is established as discussed and is structured appropriately, I think that representation is still there. And, once again, as I stated at the very beginning, is it perfect, or do we all have a crystal ball and one way is better than the other? We don't. But we are in a transformational time here in Utah. And just because there isn't another transit agency out there that is governed this way doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. And I think we ought to step back out of the political element of this and focus on the long-term impacts and focus on what we do best, and that's moving people.
I'm going to ask you to direct your remarks to the motion.
Okay. I've said my piece to that.
Well, I'd ask you to direct some remarks to the motion. You're a representative on the task force, so the specific motion of us requesting a meeting with the task force.
Well, first of all, the task force, the last meeting of the task force was last week, and the bill is coming forward. So I'm not so sure that if the task force is really an established task force anymore would be one question. And this has been discussed throughout time and of the task force, and I think that would. I'll just be frank and honest here. Moving forward with that type of resolution will do more damage to this agency than stepping forward and working collaboratively.
Based on your conversation?
Based on my conversation with the speaker, Mr. Schultz.
With the co-chairs and with
co-chairs.
The speaker, do you believe that the task force would entertain a working session with the UTA board?
I'm not so sure that the whole last meeting, this particular issue was barely touched. There were some questions raised. It wasn't a huge issue for the rest of the task force.
Why don't we call for the question? I think we need to have a public comment first on even the substitute.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to comment on this substitute motion. I'm opposed to it. I think the elephant in the room is trust. We don't have it with the legislature. We can talk all about how we want to fix ourselves and how we're going to do it and how we've done it. And we have done good things. I'm not discounting that. We don't have trust at the legislative level, and we certainly don't have it with the public. If we think we do, we don't. And the reality of it is we're going to move the agency forward. We got to get the trust back. The trust comes back when the legislative task force, which has been in panel for about a year, which has looked at this in detail and in depth, and has had opportunity, and it's their position, their job to fix this situation. I want to get the trust back. I want to get the thing moving forward. Our continual talking about how we want to fix ourselves and what we're going to do and how we're going to make it better, how we're going to govern it. I don't see my job as that. I see my job as to come be a board member. The legislature is got their bill. If they pass it, they pass it. If it works, if there's tweaks they need to make, that's their responsibility to make. But we need to get the trust back in the entity. We need to get the trust with the legislature and the trust with the public.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for public comment.
I do not have any cards on this topic.
All in favor of the substitute motion to ask for a meeting of this board with the trust, with the task force, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay, let's ask Trustee McKinley on the phone.
Just 1 second. Bob, are you yes or no?
I'm here. I vote aye.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, we have 2 aye votes and the rest nay. The motion fails. We're back to the original motion, which is the resolution before us. Are there further comments? Nisha?
After my impassioned statement, my passion is for UTA. My passion is for not having asthma for the last 5 days because the air is supposedly wonderful. My passion is for my children to be able to get places that they want, either in their car or on the train or on the bus, without the massive congestion. I'd like them to find, my grandchildren to find reasonable housing in our state. And I'd like economic development to prosper in our state. I see this bill offering all of those things, not perfectly. And most imperfectly is the transparency issue. And if that gets fixed, or even if it doesn't, it's not my job anymore. After May 18th, I'm done. And so I just want it to be successful. And therefore, after all that passion, I would vote yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I paid attention to this bill along the way, and it seems very equitable, although some counties may not like the fact that their taxes are going to go up by 0.25% or more, depending on the county you're in. But I think it's good. I think we should embrace change and move forward with it.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Alex?
Call a question.
Okay, the motion before us is to adopt the resolution, which you have in front of you. And so we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, I'd like to know the names of the nays. Okay, Bob, you voted nay on the phone?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Sherry, nay. Any other nays? Babs? So there's just 2 nays? Right, okay. Motion carries and we've adopted the resolution. I just want to say thank you. This is not easy stuff. Appreciate your moving your schedule around to be here. And I want the staff to know that in my dealing with this issue in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've lost no respect at all for the staff. And I think the world of Jerry. I think he's doing a terrific job, and our council and all our staff. So I hope that will not be interpreted as negative. So with that,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Over here. If I could take just 30 seconds of personal privilege, and I want to express my appreciation to you for the work and diligence that you've put and sacrifice you've made and currently and continue to make in behalf of this agency and your leadership. And I know the last couple of weeks has not been particularly easy, and you've, I think, done a yeoman's job in understanding and working through the issues, and working particularly with the speaker and the sponsors of the bill, and but also understanding this bill is much bigger than all of us individually, and it's much bigger than UTA as one agency. It is transformational, and it still has yet to be released. It'll be released this afternoon and go through the process. So it's not passed yet. So there still could be a number of things that change along the way. But I want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. I think it's important as you have interchanges with various people that, you know, you're going to have mayors and legislators and others ask you questions. I think it's important to state what UTA's official position is, and that is incorporated in this resolution. If you wish to evaluate policy beyond that, you're on your own, and I'd ask you to make that very clear, because the co-chairs have expressed some frustration about that, and I think we need to honor what the board's done. Essentially, we've taken ourselves out of the politics of this. We've just said this is not our decision to make, and it will be made by the legislature. And my counter to Representative Schultz the other day was, should this resolution pass, please understand that while we're not going to go lobby the Senate, we're not going to lobby the governor, and we're not going to do anything to undermine this bill. Obviously, they're going to take their own time and judgment and make decisions. And there are other issues in this bill that allow us now to work with the co-chairs to address and hopefully resolve, and importantly, the pension issue. And Representative Schultz has expressed a real sincere willingness to work through those issues, some of which are very important and some which are technical. So thank you very much. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you, Bob. We're adjourned.
Okay.